Hey guys, it's Hatchet from Hatchets Hooch. We're doing another on location today, and today we are at Old Nick Williams. OldNickWhiskey.com. Here's their distillery. It's out here in Louisville, North Carolina, right outside of Farmington on I-40. It's a beautiful place out through here. They got a farm and a fairly new distillery. So let's go in and meet the owners. Hey guys.
Hey, how you doing today?
All right, this is Zeb.
How you doing?
Fine.
This is my fiance Ashley.
Hi.
Hey Ashley, and y'all know these two?
Hey.
Matt, Elena.
Welcome to Old Nick Williams Company.
All right, give us a little bit of history here.
All right, so we'll start our tour right over here. My family actually settled the area here in 1765. My fifth great grandfather by the name of Colonel Joseph Williams actually got an 8,000 acre land grant from the Lord Proprietors. It was a pretty hectic area at that particular time in here, and the colonies were trying to settle inshore, and they were offering up large tracts of land to anyone who would come in and settle it. At 18 years old, what better way to do that? Come in, settle the property. Well, he set his first still in 1768, basically for medicinal purposes. The quality spread around, and next thing you know, the distillery is in operation selling to the public. The distillery was actually passed on generation to generation, father to son, until my great-grandfather, the man you see there, inherited it. His father and his grandfather had actually died within a year of each other. So he inherited the distillery at a young age, I think right around the age of 20. Okay. He quickly realized it was easier to put his money into alcohol than it was to have rotting fruits and grains and things sitting here on the farm, and began to really pump up the output here on the farm. He changed the name of the distillery, which was at that time called Joseph Williams Distillery, to the Old Nick Williams Company for his grandfather. So here in the Williams family, your names flip from Joseph to Nicholas, Joseph, Nicholas, generation to generation, so it's even confusing for us. So some of the stuff you'll see here, these are some of our antique bottles that used to hold some of the spirits that we distributed. You'll notice on those that this was actually the town of Williams, North Carolina. In 1904, the state actually passed a law saying you had to be in an incorporated town to produce spirits. So my great-grandfather incorporated the town of Williams, North Carolina, in order to fulfill that law. Had a couple hundred employees here on the farm at that particular time, and had over 20,000 gallons of liquor here on the farm. Family sent liquor to presidents, congressmen, etc. We've got letters in here from James Buchanan, James K. Polk. There's one from Theodore Roosevelt. Generally speaking, thanking them for the whiskey they sent, and typically with an order for more. So it was kind of good marketing there, sending your liquor to the senators and the presidents.
Definitely.
This was his top hat he always wore, and the cane that he always walked with, not because he needed the cane to walk, but if you notice closely, that cane is lined with glass. He had Old Nick everywhere he went, so if you wanted a sample, he could pour it right out of the cane.
Nice.
So in 1910 or 1909, North Carolina enacted Prohibition 10 years before the federal government. So in 1910, we were forced to stop production here in the state and only ship our product outside the state lines or outside of the United States. So he died in 1913, never got to see federal prohibition enacted. 1920 came in, revenuers came in and disposed of 28,000 gallons of liquor that we had here aging on the property, and business kind of died at the wayside. My grandfather and his brother tried to fire the business back up in the 30s, right after the Depression. Prohibition, North Carolina was still under prohibition at that particular time, so they tried to do that in Virginia. However, they wanted them to put the farm up, and they decided it wasn't worth the gamble. So in 2014 and 15, we started really chewing the idea again, and started getting things in the works, like I said, with those guys in Conover at Foothills Distillery, and here we are today.
Wow, that's an awesome history
That's great.
of the whiskey here.
Yep.
So is this one of the first stills, or?
No, this is just
Okay.
one. It's been really funny since we've started this business. Anybody who's got little stills that don't want them anymore or worried about getting busted, next thing you know, they're popping up over here. Hey man, will you give me $100 for this? So we buy them, sit them around just for for looks. That one doesn't. That'd be good for test batches, but we've actually got one about double that size for our test batches out there.
Right. Awesome. So what types of whiskey and stuff do you have here?
Well, we actually do make our clear Carolina whiskey. I don't like to call it moonshine because we pay a lot of federal excise tax. We also do a bourbon whiskey here. So if you guys want to come out to the back, we'll show you how the production happens.
All right.
This was actually a door that we salvaged out of the post office from the town of Williams. So we tried to reuse as much here as possible.
Oh, it smells wonderful in here.
Yeah, that's that rum flavor really taking over today. Just come on back, I'll show you how it happens. So we start our process right here in these big white totes. We actually source our grains from a local farmer up near Hickory in Conover, Russell Hedrick. We use non-GMO grains. We're using an heirloom variety. It's called Reed's Yellow Dent Corn. We also use wheat and malted barley in our whiskey mash bill. We grind or mill everything in-house here on the property. Our mill back here in this back room simply to keep the dust out of the facility and keep rodents out.
That's a good idea.
This particular mill is a burr mill. It was produced up in Wilkesboro from the guys at Meadow Mills, and they've been producing like high quality mills for well over 100 years. So we try to keep our money as local as possible here as well. So from here, we'll grind the meat, grind the corn, wheat, the malted barley down to the consistency you see here. And then into the mash tun it goes. Now we'll cook our corn and our wheat up to around 180 degrees. At that 180 degree mark, what you're doing is starting to soften up those starches and allow those to be converted into sugars, which we'll need for alcohol conversion. So we'll let that cool down to around 140. We'll add our malted barley, and we'll also add an enzyme called amylase. Okay, those two products going in actually start that conversion, converting that starch to sugar, which we need for alcohol sooner in the process. So once it cools to around 90 degrees, we'll pitch our yeast. And the yeast is the live bacteria that gets in there, gobbles up all that sugar that we just created, lets off carbon dioxide and leaves alcohol in its place. So after we pitch the yeast, it's moved here into the fermentation rooms where it's going to sit for 4 to 5 days depending on the particular mash. So we have 2 fermentations for whiskey going right now, and we've got our first 450-gallon fermentation of rum. You're more than welcome to climb up the ladder and give it a peek. See it all bubbling and going crazy. The rum's really working itself over there. So what you see basically at this point, the fermentation's happening inside here, releasing the carbon dioxide, which is bubbling off the top, and leaving us alcohol to take off with the stills.
Now, what kind of what are you putting in the rum? Is that molasses?
We're using a combination of 3 things. We're using white sugar, white cane sugar. We're using dark brown sugar, and we're also using blackstrap molasses. I'm trying to keep to a true Jamaican rum, different than anywhere in the world. Only produced in Jamaica. What we're trying to accomplish, and we'll see if we can nail it down.
Awesome.
Ready. So from there, from the fermentation room, that mash is going to be moved up to the main kettle for the first run. That first run through the still is called what we call a stripping run, because we're literally stripping the alcohol off of the grain or out of the mash. We'll fill up around 250 gallons in this kettle, run it as fast and hard as we can, turning that alcohol to vapor, bringing it across the still where it meets cold water at the top of the condensing tower, turning that vapor back to liquid and off the still. That very first run, it comes off, it's going to be kind of oily. We collect every part of the alcohol, the good, the bad, and the ugly on that first run. It's called low wines. And we'll actually save those up for a second distillation. So once we have enough to run it again, we'll pack or charge the still again, run it again, but this time as slow as possible, keeping that distillate nice and cool. At that particular time, we separate the different parts of the liquor with the heads, the hearts, and the tails. It's where we're very picky on what we're keeping. The heads, basically those are rerun and put back into the low wines to improve the proof on the next run. Our tails are actually saved, and the tails go back into each one of our stripping runs to keep that flavor profile alive. So that second time off the still, that alcohol is going to come off somewhere around 150 to 160 proof, and it's going to be ready to consume, either go in a barrel or knock down to 92 proof with our well water and bottled as our clear whiskey. So we either put it down to 92 proof, put it in bottle as our clear, or we'll put it into barrel. To be considered bourbon here in the United States, it has to be made of at least 51% corn. It's got to be aged in a new American oak charred barrel. It can't go in that barrel over 125 proof, and you can't have any additives, color, or flavoring to that. Okay, so our bourbon sits in those barrels for a minimum of 18 months. We've got some now that are pushing over 2 years. Once we think it's ready, we'll dump it, cut it to 92 proof again with our well water, and into a bottle it goes. So we bottle everything here in-house. Everything, again, like I said, is done by hand with love with the family. We bottle 4 bottles at a time around the room. We cork each one of them by hand, label each one of them by hand, and in a box they go. We are one of the last of 13 control states here in the United States, which means everything that we bottle and produce has to be sent to Raleigh before we sell it. So it sits in the warehouse in Raleigh, then myself or my cousin have to get out to all the ABC boards across the state and sell our product. If they decide they want to carry it, they order it from Raleigh and we get paid in 30 to 45 days. Once it's in that ABC board, then we can get out to the bars and restaurants. If they decide they want to carry it, they order it from their mixed beverage ABC board. So it's a tangled web we weave here.
Oh yes, North Carolina is a rough state.
It is a rough state. So that's pretty much the production end of it. You guys have any questions?
Now, did you make these yourself here?
The corkers?
Yeah, the corkers.
No, my dad did. That's the great part about having a man part of the company who's a retired shop teacher.
Oh, nice, nice.
That's what he did. About that first 100 corks by hand, we realized real quick we've got to find something to deter this problem.
A rubber hammer don't get it.
Everybody's hands were sore, bruised, and
awesome.
Yep.
So your whiskey is normally aged at how much?
About 18 months. That's the minimum. We put on the label, because you have to have an age statement by the federal government. We put at least a year. But the youngest we've ever bottled is 18 months. And now we're beginning to get some built up, and we're hoping to start taking that 2-year, 4-year, and then get some out where we can blend and really get some length of time on it.
Right. And that's hard to do when you first start out to get.
Absolutely.
You know, you've got all this money tied up in barrels for 2 or 3 years, and
correct.
It's, you know.
And then of course you got the money tied up in all this to get our permits. You have to have all this pretty much put in place, bought, leases done, the building built, everything before you even apply for your permits to the federal government. And those permits can take anywhere from 6 months to 18 months, depending on how well you've dotted your I's and crossed your T's.
Wow.
We luckily pulled ours off in just under 6 months. So,
nice.
Yep.
Awesome. Awesome. So you personally get out and go to the liquor stores?
I do.
Okay. So you've seen quite a bit of the state then, huh?
Absolutely, and that's actually some of the fun part of it. You know, my cousin and I are out beating the streets, and we're also in here. It's a joint effort of each of us doing all the parts. With that being said, getting out and actually selling our liquor, meeting the people who are selling it in the ABC stores, it's really neat. And then 2, getting out to all the bars and actually establishing a relationship with those guys. So now we've got a bunch of our bourbon barrels at different breweries. We have 2 at Front Street in Wilmington, 2 at Wrightsville Beach Brewing. We've got a couple getting ready to go up to West Bend, and a couple getting ready to go to Fiddle and Fish here in Winston-Salem. So you're starting to work and do things with other breweries and get your name out there. And it's just a neat camaraderie that this industry shares all the way around. So it's been really neat.
Awesome, yeah. Yeah, Terry's got a barrel table.
Yeah.
He was showing me pictures of.
He did a heck of a job with that thing.
Yeah, it looks good. So y'all do tours Monday through Friday?
We do tours actually Tuesday through Saturday, and that's 11 to 6. Sometimes on Tuesday through Thursday we'll close up around 5. But just give us a call, make sure somebody's here to do the tours. But Friday and Saturdays for sure we run 11 to 6, non-stop tours every 30 minutes.
Wow, 30 minutes. Awesome. So what all do you offer here as far as tours and merchandise and?
Yep. So here we, of course, we're limited by law on exactly what we can do. We're not bartenders, so we provide tastings with our tours. Do a full production tour like you just had. Come in, do our tastings, and get to try the products and cocktails that we've whipped up with our products, and have all sorts of old Nick Williams merchandise and mixers, bar games, barrels, etc.
All right, awesome. So, and the website is?
OldNickWhiskey.com.
Old Nick Whiskey. Okay, so I've never seen the distillery that will whip up some drinks that made with your product, right? That's cool. Most of the time it's just the straight, little shot and that's it.
Well, there's some loopholes and laws. I can't mix beverages for you, and I can't provide you cocktails. However, I can point you in the right direction. Pour those mixers in separate cups, and what you mix and do
Right.
as your own chasers is
Okay.
your own deal.
Awesome. Collapsible shot glass. That would come in handy, wouldn't it, Matt?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Awesome.
All right, so couple products we're going to try today. This is our Old Nick Carolina whiskey. Basically the exact same product of this, just has not been in a barrel. That one's been in the barrel. This one has not, both bottled at 92 proof. This is our Carolina bourbon.
Okay. And the rum, it should be out soon?
I'm hoping 30 to 60 days.
Okay.
We've got to get our label approvals and
Right.
all the fun stuff with the government before they turn it loose in a bottle.
All right. All right, we're gonna do a separate video for the tastings. Thanks for joining us on this episode, the tour of Old Nick Williams. And Matt, you ready to drink some liquor?
We're going to try some stuff.
All right, sounds good. All right, guys, like and subscribe.